Welcome back, everybody, to Flight Path. We are so glad that you are joining us. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about everything that happened over the past week in the world of Tern. So if you're using Tern to run your travel business, or you're thinking about Tern to run your travel business, or maybe you're just thinking about joining Tern, we know some of you are kind of listening in. Wherever you're at, this is your place for all things Tern news updates. As always, I'm your host, David, one of the CEO and one of the co-founders here, joined by Brad, our head of design, and Molly, our head of product. And we've got lots to cover, everything from some of the learnings we've had in talking to users over the past week, some updates that have shipped, some AI things, events that are coming up. And so with all of that to cover, we better get started. If you like this, subscribe, click the like button, leave us a comment. We love that. But let's start off with a little bit of kind of a check-in. Brad, how was your week?
This week has been wild. It's been a whirlwind of just lots of things going on. We've got lots of projects in flights. We're interviewing people to help grow the team. And also we interviewed a bunch of customers this week, just like really digging in to try and understand a lot more of like the usability feedback and some like features that aren't quite right for everyone's workflow. And it's Friday. I'm so glad it's Friday, but it's been it's been like a really kind of motivating week too, just to like really connect with customers and get a lot of stuff done in the process.
I like so feel that, right? It's like whenever you're having like those moments of like, I don't know, like doubt or uncertainty or questioning, it's just like you talk to a bunch of users and it's just like, just so energizing. So Molly, how was your week?
I literally joined every single user call and interview that Brad did. So like just plus to everything he just said.
It's been a similar week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really been, it's kind of funny. Like, I mean, it's been a busy week, but like compared to the 6 weeks before where I've been like traveling or like working kind of remotely, it's actually felt like really nice for me to be kind of back in a rhythm in the home office. It's the first week where I've been home all week since I think maybe mid-February. So that has felt glorious. Like it's still been busy, but it's like actually felt like energizing for me. So I'm sorry to say that because I know it's sort of been an extra crazy week for both of you, but that's the Friday afternoon energy that I'm bringing. I'll use my update thing. Just I'm back on the road next week, and if you're listening to this and you're going to Cruise360, we'd love to meet with you in person. We're going to have kind of a booth there, but we're also hosting a happy hour at a hotel just down the road from the conference hotel. You can find all the details of that on the community site, so community.tern.travel. Just go to the upcoming events and you'll find all the details there. We would love to meet with you. We also have a webinar coming up in just under a month. May 15th at 4 o'clock Eastern time is going to be our next product launch webinar. And you know it's going to be a good one when you're a month out and you're like, are we going to be able to fit everything that we want to talk about in 90 minutes? Like, should it be 2 hours? And you're like, well, 2 hours is probably longer than people want to spend on a webinar, but it is going to be action-packed. We're going to have product announcements. We're going to have just some really big news to share. So go ahead and register for that. You can find it on our website. Go to the resources, click on events. You'll find the link there right on the top to register. It's going to be a big one. So with that housekeeping out of the way, actually, no, I did have one more thing. Sorry.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. I just want to acknowledge like the response to last week's podcast was so cool. I mean, like just the number of comments were like, this is the best episode yet. And it was just like, it was really special to hear the kind of community response. To how we build products, right? And just like the culture that we're building here. So I just wanted to start off by saying like thank you to those of you that listen, that give us that feedback, good and supportive and being our cheerleaders like so many of you are, but also like in the same vein, like holding us accountable, pushing us to be better. It is one of the most special things about building this business is all of you. And so like I said, we saw every one of those comments and it really did mean the world to us. And it was such a cool way to end the week and go over the weekend. Although I think the three of us still are honored and flattered and are also still slightly uncomfortable with pictures of us in people's living rooms. Like it's just still kind of mind blowing that people are like watching us on the TV. And I'm like, I got to start picking my outfits more thoughtfully if I'm going to be on an HD TV here. So anyway, with that out of the way for real now, Molly, yeah, go ahead.
Just like on the same vein, it was kind of cool because Brad and I were in a bunch of interviews this week. And like every single time we got asked, I think in every interview, like what makes working here so special? What's your favorite thing? We got to brag about the community. Like it's literally like the best thing about working at Tern is the advisors that we get to serve. So I don't know, it was really cool. We just got to like brag about you all like every single interview with engineers and designers and stuff, and that was really fun.
We also managed to ship some stuff despite all the interviews that we're doing, despite everything that's going on, right? Like there's also quite a few things that shipped and things that are people are going to just appreciate, that's going to reduce support volume, things that are like kind of game changing from an AI perspective. So let's jump into that. And Brad, I think you're kicking us off with an update on invoicing, but also some smaller wins, maybe smaller wins that people are going to really love.
Yeah, for sure. So the first small win is really more like what we call like a quality of life improvement. There's a few things that you do in Turn that take a long time to process, and when you kick those things off in the product, you get a nice little banner at the bottom that's telling you like, "Hey, this thing is processing." Every once in a while, not all that often, but every once in a while, it won't ever stop processing. It kind of just gets like stuck, and often you have to reach out to support to tell an engineer to like actually go in and I'm sure there's a better word, but like to like kill that job basically and make it go away. So now we have a way for you to just
Cancel it. Not, you don't have to kill it.
yeah, better, less risk. But yeah, so now there's a way. If that ever happens to you, or something's like stuck in that state and just loading forever and ever, now there's a way for you to cancel it yourself. Right, that's the word we put in the UI. I should have just remembered that.
I'm just picturing the button being like kill. Yes.
But yeah, that's there. So that should help if you ever end up in that state. But again, it doesn't happen for the most part. And then an actual like usable feature, like a new thing for everyone, is that we added a way to share your credentials on your itinerary for now, and it's a prereq for the invoicing project that we're working on. And so what that means is if you want to display things like a seller of travel number or your TICO number, whatever type of thing that you want to make sure your travelers are aware of those credentials when they're either looking at an itinerary or making payments, stuff like that. Now within business settings, there's a way to add those credentials, and they'll show up within your little advisor card in Turn, and eventually will show up on an exportable invoice once we get there in the next couple of weeks.
So cool. And it's been fun. Like this is one of those sort of like business settings things that like if you care a lot. And it's been fun watching people, you start to populate these with the different numbers and sort of very intentionally built to be flexible, right? Like we know this was an interesting discussion internally, like should we try and pre-populate a list of all the numbers? And it's like, we've got people using Tern all over the globe and there's different regulation requirements all over the place. And so like giving people space to put whatever numbers make the most sense for you that you're required to kind of communicate. So that's really fun. And like Brad said, it's going to be really neat to see that sort of build towards this invoicing product, which is just going to solve. I was on a call with somebody from Australia and they're like, that's the one thing that we need for this to like really work here. We know that's true in Canada. And so it is, we are writing the code as fast as we can. It's going to be a really cool update. And you'll definitely want to be on that May 15th webinar, we'll just say. Other updates, though, Molly, I'll hand it over to you. Do you want to kind of talk about some other big changes?
Yes, I would. So we've been hard at work on some improvements to our AI like import tools. So AI, Tern AI Assist, specifically with customers who are trying to take content maybe from a DMC or from another CRM that they're switching over from and move that content into Tern. And the problem that people are running into is that, the old experience had a tendency to summarize, right? It got a bunch of content in and it said, how can I reword and consolidate this content to make it like skimmable and nice? And, sometimes maybe that's okay. But when you're in the mode of trying to import data with important information that you want to make sure is retained in a Tern, that creates an issue, right? And you start to not be able to use it for those types of use cases. The other issue people are running into is if it's a lot of data, it can be kind of hard to skim. And if it's not nicely formatted, that creates just an issue of you having to then go in and use our editor to format things yourself. So we solved both of these problems. We made a big leap forward towards solving these problems. I think it's with anything AI, we want your feedback to improve it. So the really cool thing is the way that we've set up the architecture, and we won't go in too in depth here, is that now we can in a more targeted way, kind of make these improvements on different activity types and with the full itinerary as like separate problems that we're solving, if that makes sense. So, for example, if this isn't working well with flights, we can go in and make some targeted tweaks to how flight parsing is working, and same with like lodging and other things. So that's pretty cool as well. That's very behind the scenes change, but I think will go a really long way. So I'm going to share my screen just to do a quick demo here. Oh boy.
Ooh.
Little Friday blooper reel there. So this is just a completely made up AI generated example of let's just imagine you have an itinerary in another system, and this is an activity that you're trying to import. And so if we go into Tern, when I say that this change is for the activity importer, what I mean is we haven't made it here yet when you're trying to import your full trips. That's coming soon. We have some big upgrades for this kind of prompt right here. But this will work for transportation, activities, lodging, flights, any of those individual components that you're trying to build on your itinerary. So if we open up this activity and we paste in this activity, you'll see, I'll demo this little kill button here. If you want to cancel it. And hopefully, if this works, you never know, little grain of salt, you always have to carefully review. It basically retains that entire activity, all of those details as you had it, including things like meals, if you had any logistical information, numbers in there that you needed to make sure were retained, it will kind of retain all of that data.
And like for the first time ever, format, like, I mean, bullet points and bolding and like all of that. I mean, before, like, that would all just be like ripped out. And even if it maintained some of the like words, it was like, and now it's one big blob of text, which is like kind of not what you want to present to your clients. And so getting this to be able to like maintain that formatting and be able to kind of bring that into Tern and translate it kind of behind the scenes is like pretty cool.
And just maybe one like nuance here. I think podcast listeners probably appreciate a little bit of an inside look. It's not like taking the formatting one for one. So like when you're copying it from another system and pasting it into that box, you won't actually see the formatting retained there. What it's doing is it's basically guessing a bit, but in a pretty high accuracy way, that like, oh, this looks like it should be a list. Oh, and because I'm seeing the little colon there, I'm assuming that this should be bolded to be nice to scan. And so you shouldn't expect it to be an exact one-for-one formatting, but just in general, the formatting should be easier to scan.
And this is maybe one of the things that's sort of happening behind the scenes is like we're spending a lot of time taking everything we've learned from implementing kind of this first version and starting to think through like, okay, what are the kind of core takeaways? What's the right, to use a overly hyped buzzword, what's the right use of like agentic workflows, and really thinking about the role of like agents versus like overall workflows. And so there's a lot of really cool things that you'll see these improvements happen, and there's sort of like a behind the scenes, like under the hood change that actually represent like a whole new way of thinking about AI. And Molly and I were kind of exchanging some docs even this morning, talking about like the infrastructure that we're starting to build here, right, will set us up to do so many cool things in the future. And so, a lot of this, it'll be kind of behind the scenes, and then eventually you'll start to see some real changes, but know that the foundation that we're building on is going to let us do some pretty transformational things. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be really fun.
Speaking of transformational things, picking up the discussion that we really kind of kicked off last week, right around sort of this kind of like point around making Tern more accessible and like more easy to understand, easier to get up to speed on, right? We spent a lot of time last week talking about kind of that thread in Facebook and kind of the impact that had on just us and a product org and how we're thinking about prioritization. And one of the things Brad and I do all the time is talking to users, right? But it's sort of kicked off over kind of the past couple of weeks, but like a major focus on let's just like dig into all the things that are maybe confusing or hard that are missing. And so, maybe opening it up to two of you, you spend a lot of time, 10 hours each, at least on calls with users today or this week. Like, what are some of the things that are jumping out?
Yeah. And I think like one thing I want to call out too is it's so interesting being on these calls where I think especially people who listen to the podcast, they're like, I know this is already on your radar, so like we'll just go by that. And Molly like, wait, no. Tell us more about that thing. Because just because we know mentally like, oh, there's some requests are on forms, we need to make, just as an example, right? Like it'd be great if forms were attached to a trip. We're like, we get that conceptually. We have it on a roadmap. What we don't have yet is like the specific example of like, I'm in my workflow. I'd like to be able to like, when I'm trying to accomplish this task, quickly pull up this information and here's why, and like, here's how I'd use that within my flow. And that's been, I think my take is just like the most useful way we could spend our time right now is collecting those real world examples so that when we go to actually like decide exactly how that will look and work and how we'll build it, we can connect that to like those specific scenarios and use cases that folks are walking us through basically on these calls. And so that's been really like my highlight. And again, it's not just forms. It's like any possible thing you could imagine, or like even things that were in that thread in Facebook where it's like, this thing's frustrating. It's like, oh, tell us more. What about that thing? Give us an example, give us a workflow. And that's just hard to do unless you actually jump on a call and have somebody walk you through it. There's been a few things that, like just a few highlights maybe to share. There were places where someone had called out, like on the pricing tab in my itinerary today for a client, we show installments like deposit, final balance, all those types of things. It didn't occur to me. We don't show those for option block. So you put something in an option block, we hide all that information. Previously thought like, oh, you don't really need that. You don't need to know the payment schedule until you've picked that thing to actually make a payment. Well, it turns out we were missing an obvious thing, which is like, yeah, people might pick an option depending on how much the deposit is. And like, we're just hiding that today. We didn't hear that specific example when we built it. And so we just like didn't account for that. And that's something we can change hopefully relatively quickly, like based on this feedback. And there's a few other examples like that. We've heard a lot over time around like splitting payments can be challenging in Tern. And we have a few workflows and ideas, but I don't think I personally realized like how common this is until like almost every call we jumped on. People like, oh, and by the way, this is really hard when I just have two people traveling together and they like want to pay separately. And so I think that's another good push where it can get lost in the noise of like all the feedback when we're just like, oh, that's not kind of the core scenario, but it's actually impacting like almost every advisor because that's a thing you have to deal with, depending on who's traveling and who's going with each other. Molly, anything on your side?
Oh, so many things. Yeah, I think I'm excited. Like, there's a lot of feedback just around minimizing clicks of like information that you need is not exactly where you need it and accessible in the way that you need it to be. And so just like digging in and having people share their screens and like literally show us the clicks was so, so helpful. One just small example that hopefully we're going to fix like today, maybe early next week to just hedge a little bit. Is like when you go to pull up the cruise library and you have a ship in your head, the search box that's like the main search box doesn't work on ship. You have to click filter, and then it's like multiple clicks actually to just get to the search option you need. And that's actually the most common one that a lot of people do need. So that's just like a quick example, but that's something that we're like, we don't even have to wait for the roadmap. We can just slot that in tomorrow. I mean, content in general, like library content, yikes, content in general. We've talked about folders. That's on our roadmap now for kind of a better organization of library content. But it was just really useful hearing how people are using content in the context of their trip planning process. So like getting into the weeds of like, okay, I pull in this template. I need to be able to know that what I've pulled in is associated with like this folder and item. And then like if I notice a typo, I need to just be able to update that item instead of having to like save it as a new template and then go and remember to delete the old template. And there's just like so much there, I guess, to unpack further as we think about just how do we better organize the information that advisors need, which speaking of having that information better accessible on a dashboard via global search, just in more intuitive ways of like finding the client you need, finding the trip that you need, finding the upcoming payment that you need. Just another big theme related to, again, like minimizing clicks and kind of surfacing the information you need in the way that you need it. And which is plus what Brad said about like, it was just so helpful having people share their screens and end-to-end workflows, because again, you hear all these requests, but it helps us like connect the dots on the best way to build these things. And I mean, we have like one really cool example. Maybe Brad will actually, since I just did a monologue, like pass it back over to you of the some of the designs you've been working on.
Yeah, I think we are talking to Tim, right? Yeah, and he was saying, he was walking us through like a bunch of feedback on different areas of the product, and pulls up a trip on the overview tab, and it's just point blank like, what about this information is an overview? And it's like, I feel very attacked. But also like it's right. Like he's right. There's like traveler details
Wow.
there. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of trip settings that like technically apply to the whole trip, and there's like a link to an itinerary. But like when you hear overview as an advisor, probably what you're expecting there is more like, what do I need to take care of on this trip? What's the latest status of this trip? What's been going on? How do I easily access the like booking data that like if I'm looking for a specific reservation within this trip, can I like find that one and pull it up real quick? Just like an overview of those bookings so I can get to them fast. Totally makes sense. And it was really fun that we had that conversation on, it was like yesterday, because we've been exactly like trying to solve that problem over the last couple of weeks. And we've been exploring what we can do on that overview tab to make it more actually like what you need when you go there versus just like traveler details only. So a lot more to come there. We won't do a demo of that today, but at least Tim got a quick demo just because he brought it up in a call, and we'll have plenty more to share there within the next couple of weeks.
So it was so fun because he was listing off the things that were most important, and we were like, yes. Like those are all things that we want to include there. So it was fun. I think we'll be able to solve that really well.
And I think that's what's kind of so cool about understanding. This has been a theme, right? Like Brad and Molly, you both just said this, right? Which is like, we get so many sources of feedback, right? You look at like the feedback tool, you look at like support, you look at, you know, even the conversations that we have. And a lot of them, I think, are at this level traditionally of like, I just need this thing, right? And it's like sort of prescribing a little bit of the solution because it's the solution that has been known from other systems, or it's like the other things that like they wanted to do. And sometimes the way that it's been done is the right way to do it moving forward, right? And so like actually that solution is very helpful because we can just take the solution, we can implement it. But a lot of times technology's evolved, right? And there's like new options, there's new way to think about things, and that's really kind of going up to like the story level or the workflow level and understanding like, okay, like what are you trying to do here? Like you both said, like what is that the best way to do it? And like we can then start to take a fresh approach to it and be like, okay, like you're asking for this form related to the trip, maybe we do that. And because we understand the core workflow, we can actually automatically surface that information in different ways, right? Like, and we'll see like how this all plays out. But just being able to understand the actual core task that's trying to be done, job to be done, or whatever you want to call it, right, is like so helpful. I had this, I spent some time this week talking to advisors on the kind of like ultra high end luxury side of things about, you know, the different processes around getting client credit card authorization. And you know, this is like, I think another kind of cool example is like we've spent a lot of time building what we think is one of the best flows from a compliance perspective out there, in that not only do we have what I think about as table stakes, like any platform that's bragging about PCI compliance is like, duh, like if you don't have PCI compliance, like what you just like get sued, right? Like you just have to have that. But what most companies don't have is like the risk management of like, how do I help protect my business against friendly fraud? Which you can have a completely PCI compliant system that does nothing to protect you from friendly fraud. And so that's where we're like, okay, we've built this solution to address both of those pillars. But there's opportunities to optimize, right? And like really thinking through like, okay, how do we find the best of both worlds? One of our kind of operating principles at Tern is the power of and. Like, how do you really reduce the friction for a client who's just like, I just need to authorize this trip, and like I'm working with you as an advisor because you reduced my workload, and protect the advisor wherever possible. So it's been really fun to kind of dig into that and really kind of pressure test that, and hearing the stories of what advisors are doing today really brings that to life, right? And kind of in a lot of ways, like makes sure that we feel the pain that you as users feel, right? And I think like when we feel that pain, which I think stories are one of the best ways to do that, um, we can go back and like with a renewed sense of urgency, be like, we are going to figure out how to solve this problem in a really great way. So it's been fun. It's hard problems, right? But it has been fun just to kind of anchor this in the day-to-day work. And we're not going to show the mocks today, but just seeing some of the mock-ups that Brad put together, like it's going to be really cool.
You know what, David? That just sparked something. I know people listening often like to get a glimpse into like some more of our business strategy and stuff. Like something you said just really reminded me, like feeling the pain directly. And I think you and I have talked about this, but as we grow, we feel pretty strongly about making sure that like the people building the products are the ones that continue to have those direct conversations with users so that we are experiencing that pain firsthand. It's not like removed in like a second or third order from a user research team that's then relaying stuff, because there's literally nothing like hearing that directly. And then also having the people building share kind of the releases with the world. So like that can traditionally be split out as like product marketing. But again, like I feel very passionate that like I want to share the product updates every week and like field all the questions and confusion when that goes wrong, and like celebrate the wins when that goes right and share those back with my team. But I don't know, I think there's something about having those roles not become too separated out, so that like we're going through the pain, we're leaning into the sting, as you said, that's now like become a viral sensation. And it doesn't become kind of removed over time by like bifurcating the role of like product and design within an organization. Totally off script, but that just popped
No,
up.
I love it. I mean, I deeply believe that you will never have the same emotion looking at a spreadsheet that you will when you're looking somebody in the eye and being like, yeah, that story sucks, right? Like, working with that client who like can't figure out the difference between the mobile web and the email client and mobile web on the browser, and like why they're not talking to each other, and it's just like 2 hours of your life that's sucked away. Like, yeah, like that sucks. Like we have to fix that. And I think you're spot on. A lot of companies will be like, oh, like, well, we have a big enough user base now that we have to like get a user researcher and do all these like really robust surveys and understand. And like that has a place, but like it's also super easy to hide behind that data, right? And just be like, oh, well, like it's only 30%. Well, it's like, well, yeah, but like for the 30%, it like really can be tough, right? So
I'm going to share this podcast with the designers of the world. I'm going to get excommunicated from the design community.
If you don't agree with us, I just said it's my opinion, Brad.
No, but I think like exactly what you're saying is totally true. Like there's nothing quite like hearing it directly, and like not just hearing it, but like feeling accountable for fixing it.
Exactly. Accountable for fixing it. Yeah.
Maybe one
oh
last
gosh,
thing
like
on
looking
this
back.
topic. If you're listening and you're like, wait, all these people are talking to Brad and Molly, how do I talk to Brad and Molly? Our emails are both just Brad at Tern.travel and Molly at Tern.travel. So if you want to set up a call, if you have feedback you want to share, like always happy to reach out. Or reach out, we're always happy to respond. That's the right framing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It works. Got a lot going on, and I think, like I said, another plug for the webinar. It's going to be really cool. It's just kind of culmination in a lot of things that are sort of kind of happening behind the scenes, some of which we've alluded to, some of which will be maybe a bit of a surprise. But let's talk a little bit about next week. What's on people's agenda? What are you thinking about? What are you excited about for next week? Maybe kind of kicking off with you, Molly.
Ah, damn. I was hoping you would kick off with Brad. And then I plus what he says, because we'll be joined at the hip again. I'm really excited to get into the kind of next level of details on some of the things that we talked about, like the new trip overview, that I think will go a long way. I'm writing a PRD, a product requirements doc for folders in the library, which will just be really fun because of the excitement around that. might get able to get our hands on invoicing testing. So like that'll be really, really hype. I don't know, like a lot of really fun things that will be kind of testing and getting ready next week. What about you, Brad?
I think to just add to that, I'll probably be really deep in the weeds of the actual like specs or like the details of the trip overview tab and working with engineering to like break that into probably smaller like shippable pieces. There's a lot of ideas we have there, and we really need to like figure out what we can do now, what's going to be done later, stuff like that. But I think regardless of where we land, it's going to be a huge improvement.
Love it. My week, I've got Cruise360, so another plug if you're going to be there, or you're just in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, or you want to come, from wherever you are in Florida. We're having a little happy hour, so you can find the details there, community.tern.travel. So we'll be traveling to that. That'll be Wednesday through Friday. It's always a kind of a fun conference, so excited for that. We will be, and then kind of Monday, Tuesday is a lot of like prep. We've got a big board meeting coming up on May 2nd. So that'll be, kind of working on really solidifying the strategy for the rest of the year and kind of working with the leadership team and kind of preparation for that. So that'll be really fun. Some kind of big decisions and big things that are being made over the next couple of weeks. And that should be fun. So should be a good week. Looking forward to it. Thank you as always for tuning in. Leave us a comment. Go ahead and click on subscribe and the like button. Share with your community if you think this is going to something that would add value to them. And we will see you all in the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.